It's Blue. Leave it down in the comments down below because I would like to know how you guys are doing today. Welcome to another video. This video has been requested and it is very, very, very hard to talk about this topic. But I do know that talking about it, whether it's to a camera or to an actual person, it does help because you're getting awareness out there on this situation. The video is going to be about my pregnancy and child losses. I've had 5 pregnancies, but I only have 1 living child. So I'm going to go back to the very beginning and I am going to tell you my story about my pregnancies right down to the very beginning when I first got pregnant. So my first pregnancy goes all the way back to when I was 15 years old. I'm almost 21 now, so this was almost 6 years ago. But yeah, I was 15, things happened that shouldn't have happened, and I got pregnant. I'm not going to go into detail about what had happened because you guys don't really need to know that, and I'm not comfortable with talking about that. So my first pregnancy was with fraternal twins. I had a really healthy pregnancy up until the day that I delivered. So I was in school. I had told my boyfriend at the time, he's not my boyfriend anymore. I ended up dumping him when this happened. But I had told him when I was finally ready to actually come out and tell people, because I would just wear baggy clothes and everything to school because, you know, a 15-year-old, you don't really want to be pregnant in high school. So, anyways, my boyfriend at the time got mad when I told him that I was pregnant, that they weren't his kids in the situation that had happened, and he got mad at me and he pushed me down the stairs. These stairs were concrete or brick steps. One of the two. They looked like brick, but I think they were concrete. I kind of know that's the same thing, but they're different. Like full concrete, whereas it's brick by brick. Anyways, so I fell down the stairs, and a couple of the steps that I had landed on, I landed on my stomach. Not a good thing to happen when you're pregnant. By the time I got to the bottom of the stairs, I had started bleeding already, and I was bleeding pretty profusely. There were staff members, custodial members, everything like that, students that were gathering around me, wondering if I was okay. And then the foods teacher came along, which was the only person, other than a couple other staff members, that asked if I needed help, to call 911. She didn't ask if I needed it. She just immediately grabbed out her cell phone and called 911. So I was there bleeding on the floor, and so when the ambulance got there, I couldn't stand. They had to put me on a stretcher and they had to lift me up to the bed. I was taken to the hospital and I was rushed into the emergency room. They didn't take anybody before me, they just immediately brought me back, and they did my paperwork after when I was sent up to the labor and delivery ward. So they brought me in and they did an emergency ultrasound. They saw that there were no heartbeats and they saw that the babies weren't moving, and so that's when they immediately ran me up to labor and delivery. And so the nurses up there and the doctors up there rushed, because obviously a woman who's profusely bleeding, they're going to want to make sure is okay, right? So they rushed in and they did another emergency ultrasound, and they also took the Doppler to my stomach just to be sure, and they found out that it was true that there was no heartbeats. And so they induced me right away. They didn't take any chances. They just immediately induced me because the babies were too big to deliver to have a DNC for. So, hi honey. So, I was in labor. I was on the Pitocin for probably about an hour and a half before the contractions actually started. And so I went and dealt with that. And once the contractions started, I was starting to feel the pain. I knew that they were being pushed down with the contractions. They started off very small. They started getting stronger and stronger and stronger. And you know, this was my first delivery, let alone pregnancy, and so I had to learn how to cope. I did this without an epidural. I went through 10 hours of labor. 10 hours of labor and 2 hours of pushing, so 12 hours in total. That was insane. Like, it was really hard on me. And then after I delivered, I had requested that I have them on my chest for about an hour before they took them away from me, so that I can, you know, get a look at them, you know, say my goodbyes, give them snuggles. Also, another thing that I knew is that depending on how far gone they are, if you put them onto your chest with their ear to your heart, or close by your heart, the mother's heart does tend to, in some cases, restart the infant's heart. So they tried that, and that didn't work. So I knew that I had to say my goodbyes. I had to give them my final kisses, and they had to go. And so that's how that whole thing ended. My next pregnancy happened when I was 16. I know it wasn't far apart from each other, but it just sort of happened. I planned my son, and I'm like, obviously that baby was a boy. Once again, very healthy pregnancy. On October 10th of 2012, I had gotten hit in the back of the ribcage with a crowbar, and it broke and shattered through my ribs. So I had really badly broken and bruised and torn and this and that and the other thing all through the entire left side of my ribcage. And once I'm done talking about this part, I will show you my ribs so you can see what I'm talking about. I went into the hospital. They had me on the monitor. They're like, oh, it's just Braxton Hicks. You can go home because it's too early for you to deliver. The contractions continued into the next day, getting stronger. And I just rode through them because I knew I was probably just going to get the same response that I did last time. And then the third day, I had gone into the hospital again because the contractions were closer together and they were stronger than they were the first day. And so they hooked me up to the monitor. They're like, it could be, but there's still just Braxton Hicks. And so they sent me home. And then on the fourth day, I rode through it, obviously because I was getting sick and tired of the hospital. At 11:59 p.m., I delivered my son. He had blonde hair, he had blue eyes. He was born at 19 weeks and 6 days. He was a rather big baby. He was about the size of a baby born at about 30 to 35 weeks. He was a big baby. So about the size of a full-term newborn, even though he wasn't all that big, or all that old in gestation. So I probably knew that I was going to deliver within the 20 to 30 weeks anyways. So, I went through that, and to this day, I still get pains in my ribs. My ribs healed because after I gave birth, I was able to wrap my ribs and everything to try and bring them back to where they had to. But because I had already had the injury for 19 days and I delivered my son while my ribs were damaged, they didn't heal properly. So I'm going to get up and I'm going to show you my ribs, just so you can see what I'm talking about, because this side is still pushed out where this side is normal because it didn't get hit. So here we go. So as you can see, this, like, I'm kind of turned a little bit, but this side is protruded, and you can see here, I'm going to turn the camera. You can see how it looks and how it just folds in right in here, and then this side is completely normal. But this is the cost that I got for getting hit in the ribcage with a crowbar. This is the side. You can see it right there. So I still deal with pain from my ribs. They still flare up on a constant basis, and sometimes my ribs fracture because they didn't heal properly. But they are getting better ever since I started going to the gym just this year. So it works out. I'm starting to get better, and that's the thing. I'm always going to have this pain, but the fact is that I know that I'll be okay. So for my third and fourth pregnancy, they ended rather soon. With my third pregnancy, it was just one baby, but when I miscarried, I had gone to my gynecologist, and I had asked him if there was a way that we can tell how many babies were in that pregnancy, so that if I end up miscarrying again, I can tell how many kids I was going to have. So he told me, and what he told me was that when you miscarry, if you see big clots about yay big around, especially within the first 5 weeks of pregnancy, because they do get bigger as the time goes on. So about a clot about that big or so, because the sac would be small. If you take obviously medical gloves and you kind of wipe away that blood very, very, very gently, inside that clot you would be able to see the sac. So when I miscarried my fourth pregnancy, I did that when I saw those clots, and I found out that there was 3. And so I would have had triplets for my fourth. Obviously, everything happens for a reason. I probably wouldn't be the parent I am today if these things didn't happen to me. I would have loved to see my kids grow. I would have loved to see how they were with Aria. But you know, what happened, and I just got to try everything I can to cope with it. So ways that I cope with the grieving process, because I'm still going through the grieving process, and I probably always will. On their birthdays every year, or what would have been their birthdays, I send balloons up into the sky, or I write something, or I sing something that is dedicated to them. I just do something to kind of occupy my mind, especially on the day that they would have, you know, that they were born, or they would have been born, and that they would have joined my family. Just this past October, for my son's birthday, we were having this whole thing happening, and so I gave everybody a balloon that was over, a blue balloon, and we were having a fire pit. So what we did was we had the balloons blown up, we threw them towards the fire, and they would raise up and they would pop, so that they were like fireworks in the sky that we were setting off for him. I've sent balloons up for the kids. I've gotten gifts for them. Like I've gotten a gift that I can bring to Aria in their honor. Like I said, all of this is very difficult for me, but you know, everybody has a different way of coping. Sometimes you just gotta sit there and cry. Because they may have left this world, but they've never left your hearts. So for those of you who are going through this process, or who have just lost a baby or a pregnancy, or even if it was a couple years ago or many years ago, the process never gets easier. It never gets better, it just gets easier to cope with, especially if you keep your mind busy. It does help a lot, or if you write a journal or write little notes, anything you can do to help will be good. So that's all that I got to talk about in this video. I hope you guys enjoyed it. If you did, be sure to give it a big thumbs up and leave a friendly comment down below. Like I said, you know, compassion is always the best when it comes to these situations. So, like I said, that's all I got. Subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. Share with your friends if you have friends who can relate to this story. And I will see you in my next video. Bye, guys.